So today we're going to talk about a subject I never thought about discussing before, but when a brother or a sister sins against you. And I'm going to tell you, I learned through this message myself that we need to look at confronting people about wrongs a little bit different than we usually do. And God's going to show us, give us some techniques of how to do that and stop the strife that we have between ourselves, okay? So we got a short video before we go into it, if Ron is ready.
There'll be times in our life where we have to deal with people sinning against us, but we have to deal with it the way that Jesus tells us to deal with it. And believe it or not, sometimes that can lead to separation. We always want peace, we always want unity, but unfortunately, you can't change other people. They have to make that decision to change themselves. Matthew chapter 18, verse 15, Jesus talks about a brother who sins against us. He says to go and talk to him about his fault between you and him alone. Don't make a public display out of it. If he won't hear you, he says, take one or two more, so that by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, he says, every word may be established. He says if he refuses to hear them, tell it to the church. But if he refuses to hear the church, let him be to you like a heathen or a tax collector. And there comes a time of separation. What do you do in that time of separation? You pray for them, and you pray for God to get a hold of their heart, so that whatever it was that caused the divide, there can be a healing and a restoration, and there can be unity again. Like and subscribe for more content like this that helps you grow in your faith.
Healing and restoration. So many times we want to go to that person and say, look, you wronged me, I'm going to disown you, and this is it. But God tells us a different way. To go to that person face to face, without talking to our friends, our co-workers, or standing around the water thing and talking about this person. He says, keep it between y'all, face to face, and talk to them. And a lot of times when people wrong us, they don't even know they've done it. And it goes the same for us. So we're going to look at it a little different. We're doing our scripture focus is going to be Matthew 18, 15 through 20. And it's out of the King James Version, so y'all have to be with me a little bit because the King James Version just fit this message a lot better than any of the other versions because of the wording, okay? It says, moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, then thou hast gained a brother. But if he will not hear thee, then take with thee 1 or 2 more, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established. And if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the church. But if he neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as a heathen, a man, I can't even say it. Tax collector is what they're trying to say. Verily I say unto you, whatever ye shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever ye shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Again I say unto you, that if 2 of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. For where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. So our big idea we're going to cover today. When we believe a sister or brother has done us wrong, we must evaluate if it's a standard we don't even hold ourselves to. So sometimes we want to hold people to a higher standard than we even hold ourselves to. But if it's truly a wrong, then we need to confront them alone, face to face. But here's the key to this, with the intentions of redeeming them, with the intentions of bringing them back into your family of friends, with the intentions of bringing them back into the family of Christ. Okay? So it's big difference from what the world says, right? We want to get mad, and a lot of times we let it fester, right, before we even say anything about it. We get angry, we get hurt, and we let it fester in our hearts. So we're going to do this in 4 points, and I hope by the end of it we get a better understanding of how we're supposed to address strife between ourselves. So point 1, remember that you are not sinless, and you can't expect others to be. So if we remember that we're not sinless, we're not perfect, and we can't hold others to that standard, then that'll help us in this journey, won't it? Verse 15 of the verses we just read. Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him, between you and him alone. If he shall hear you, then you have gained a brother or a sister, as our title goes. That word if in that message, in those verses, is the Greek word in, is a conjunction that is derived from the word e, which means if, and, which is a particle that indicates a conditional statement. A conditional statement means it could possibly happen. So this if is a situation that will likely occur at some point. Okay, so God's telling you right there, if one trespasses, this is likely going to occur in your life. So church, don't live in a dream world thinking that your brother or sister in Christ is so perfect that they will never do anything against you. So if we establish that, then we can, all the other strife that we've had in our lives, we can let go of it, right? That they're not perfect, we're not perfect, and we shouldn't hold them to a perfect standard. So remember, we're not perfect either. The verb trespass in Matthew 18:15 is harmates, which indicates not a life of sin. So it's a one-time thing. So you set the mark for your brother or sister, but somehow they don't meet that mark. They don't measure up to your expectations. But this happens easily, right? Sometimes we hold others to such a high expectation that they can't meet it. We have to remember we live with sinless people just like us. And remember this, whatever measuring stick you measure them against, you will be measured against also. So, we meet our own goals, but often we miss the goals of others. In other words, we fail to measure up to their expectations. We let them down in some way, shape, or form. And that takes us to point 2. No indifference is allowed in the life of a Christian towards another. So we can't have indifference. If we have indifference, it's hard to be working together, don't it? It's hard to be a family when we have indifference. So this means we don't have the right to pry in the lives of others just to find something wrong with them to correct. We can't just poke into people's lives just to find wrong. Our Lord gave us a clear commandment not to judge others in Matthew 7:1 and 2. Judge not, that ye be not judged. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged, and with what measure you make, it shall be measured to you again. So no one has the right to be self-appointed judges. Judge not means to avoid condemning, to evaluate others critically. Jesus emphasizes that we will be judged by the same measure, same standards that we judge others. The Greek word chronos is used both to mean discern, decide, and to condemn. So Jesus is cautioning people, urging followers to practice self-reflection. Now, what is self-reflection? Look at yourself. Look at what you've done in life. Look at the mistakes that you have made before we correct others. And then practice humility, forgiving, loving, understanding, rather than condemning people. If we went around condemning everybody, we wouldn't have anybody around us, would we? If God condemned us for every sin we made, none of us would be in heaven, would we? So we need to reflect that. When we're thinking about someone that has wronged us, we need to make sure we're reflecting humanity, humility, and love, grace, and forgiveness, okay? This teaching encourages compassion over condemnation. It highlights the importance of treating others as we would like to be treated. That's where that comes in. Treating others as we want to be treated. Jesus teaches in Matthew 18:15 that if you're offended because they failed to meet a standard or something particular, you should go to them. Not talk about it with others. Not fester about it. Not let it dwell for weeks and weeks and months and years. But go talk to them about it. It doesn't say confront someone if it's against someone else. It's not your job to police the world. If it's offended against another person, that person needs to do the confrontation, okay? It must be something that affects you and you alone. If your brother or sister is totally unaware of the thing they have done to disappoint you. So what happens if they don't even know it? A lot of times they say, man, I'm sorry. I didn't even know I did that. I didn't even know I offended you. A lot of times, Pastor Chris Harvey will offend people and don't even know it. Text. We talked about that yesterday. Text can be taken either way, can't it? Sometimes you read a text and you'll think they're being the meanest person in the world, and they didn't mean it that way at all. Emails. Emails are tough sometimes. We need to be face to face, like the Bible tells us. If we're going to confront someone, if we think that they've done us wrong, let's talk to them. And a lot of times, I'm telling you, more than one time in my life, I didn't even know that I even offended a person. But if we don't deal with it, what does it do to our hearts? What does it do to us? It festers, or we talk to others, we badmouth someone, all for nothing. So you have to go see them about it, and you continue to hold. If you do continue to hold on to those feelings, it affects your heart, your growth, your faith. So think about that as we go into point 3. The injured person must go to the one who offended. So how do we do this? We let it be a private matter. Instead of telling others, we go and confront that person. We don't let it fester. We don't let it go on for weeks. How many people in here has had a problem with someone and it's gone on for years? A lot. Why is that? Because we choose not to deal with it. How many of those issues could have been taken care of if we would have directly went to that person and did as God asked us to do? To go directly to them with the intentions of redeeming them back to your family of God. How big a difference would it have made in the church? How many people have we lost because someone said something, someone took it wrong, and nobody ever talked about it? A lot. I've seen it in about every church I've been in. So the purpose of going to them is to do what? To win them over. A lot different from what the world tells you. Confront them, cut them off, and never talk to them again. But God says, confront them, love them, understand, and win them over. If you do not make them aware of the problem, they will continue sinning, and it'll be their own destruction. You're basically taking them and telling them you're going to hell because you're going to continue in the sin that you're doing. You may not even know that you're doing it because we wouldn't go to them. The approach of the finish should always be the redemption of that person. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained a brother or a sister. And isn't that a little bit different from how we usually address stuff? We need to go to them with the intentions of redeeming them back to us. Point 4. So what happens if they don't listen to you? What happens if you take witnesses and they don't listen to them? This is the last resort. And I hope this never gets to this point. If continue to harm a brother is inadmissible in a church body. It's inadmissible. You cannot continue to hurt someone over and over again and expect your church not to do something about it. You can't continue to beat your wife and think that the deacon body is not going to do something about it. You can't continue to hurt others and think we're not going to do anything about it. So, like I said, this is the last resort. If the offended person does not listen to the one that's offended, they must be given an opportunity to shape up and listen in the presence of other witnesses. So if they don't listen to you, they say, I ain't did nothing to you. You shouldn't take it that way. If they don't want to be redeemed, then we take the witnesses of others with us. But the key to it is, even in the second time, we want to win them over. We want to show humility and love. Chapter 18, verse 16. But if he will not hear thee, then take with thee one or two more, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established. But if this reproof is not taken, it's rejected, then we need to bring it upon the church or the deacons. I would say the deacons first, but. And in Matthew 18:17 says this, and if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the church. But if he neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as a heathen man and a tax collector. So you know how they looked at tax collectors, right? You have to cut them off. That's the reason I said this is the last resort. The church is then given authority to deal with such a brother. And if he were an outsider and no more a brother or sister, everyone must be told what he has done, and he's no longer a part of the church and is properly dealt with by the church body. We hope that it never gets to this point. So in conclusion, I want you to think about each of those steps, and I want you to think about how you've confronted people in the past, or maybe not confronted people in the past, and let it fester and let that hurt just continue to dwell in your heart. It will affect how you view others. So here's the thing. We need to deal with it when it happens. Rather than let years go by or weeks go by, because when years go by and weeks go by, things get forgotten. They might not even remember even saying it. Feelings get hurt. It's like a knife just keeps going deeper and deeper as the years go by. Deal with it right then and there. But here's the key to it all, though. Deal with it like you were wanting to win them back to you. Love, forgiveness, humility. So if there's anyone has offended you and you deem it worthy to confront them, I want you to keep in mind it's private. It's between you and them. So often we want to tell everybody and their brother about it. Do not harbor the old hurts. It will hurt your own heart. So many things could be done so much different. How many wars have been started over nothing? Most of them are over a woman. To be honest, it is. Trojan War was over a woman. Just think about that. Think about how many things could be different. How we could have maybe church members back, or older church members come back if we confront them and say, this kind of offended me at the time, but you know what? I think we can talk it out and we can work through this. just don't harbor it and make it. I remember in my past that I would hold a grudge forever. But when you follow Christ, you learn that that's not good for you and it's not good for that person. And I don't want to lose someone because of old feelings or old things that were said and never offering forgiveness. Because that's not good for us and that's not good for that person.